KKHT wants you to meet three of the classiest guys in real estate.
I am Chris Kelso, the maestro of mortgage.
I am Rob Cook, the godfather of real estate.
And I'm Joe Orsack, the king of credit swing. And together, we're
the Real Estate Rat Pack.
Much like us, real estate right now is smoking hot. So whether it's buying, selling, or owning, you need to check out the Real Estate Rat Pack.
They're here to take your calls and answer your questions live. Call now, 1-800-808-5548. And now, the Real Estate Rat Pack.
Good morning. You know,
Rob cringes every time. He knows it's coming.
He knows it's coming, and he sits there and he's.
I don't even know where that began.
And you know what? And let me tell you, it's not going anywhere in 2014.
Soon,
It's
no.
staying right here.
It is
You know,
not
we definitely
old with
want to.
me
We
anyway.
definitely want to wish a happy New Year to
Happy
all
New
of our
Year.
listeners out there.
Yes.
I
Have
think
a-
2014 is going to prove to be an outstanding year.
I think
It's
it's
going
going
to
to
be
be
a
a great
fantastic
year.
year.
It's going to be a great year. You know, 2013 was a really strong year also. So we really can't complain about that. But 2014, I think, is going to be extraordinarily well.
It's already
I have
happening
a
out there.
shameless self-promotion.
Again.
Okay.
True enough. Hey, it's a big deal for us, and it's a New Year thing because at the end of 2013, that officially closed out the consumer voting, and for the fourth year running, we have been consumer voted #1 credit repair company in the glorious state of Texas, the greatest country in the world.
And tell them what the name of that company is that's number one.
USA.
There you go.
Improve My Credit USA.
There's your shameless plug. Chris, you want to go ahead and do one?
Anybody go ahead.
No, but you know what? And I can vouch for them. Absolutely incredible company to work with. I refer a lot of clients over there. Let me tell you, they deserve all the accolades they get on that. So
I'm
it's
really proud of
very,
our
very
team,
good.
and I get to be the ham and take all the credit, but they do all the work. So
Well, you know, Chris, I'm pretty excited about our show today. We've got some great guests, and our theme today is going to be what you don't know can hurt you.
Can hurt you
This
and
is
will
a-
hurt you.
a
If you're not
recur-
careful.
It's a recurring theme because there's a lot of moving pieces in the real estate transaction. And first, I want to welcome Chaille Ralph, who was our 2014 chair of the board for the Houston Association of Realtors. Welcome.
brand new shiny chair.
Welcome.
Yes. And I've known Chaille, we're just trying to figure out, probably 12 years, and you're in that volunteer leadership positions and stuff like that. You get really close to these people, and people become family.
And she still came on the show.
And she still
And she
came on the
still
show.
came on the show.
And she
You
had-
knew
I think she
Rob
felt
and you
obligated,
came on
Chris.
board still.
she had never listened to it, so she didn't know what to expect. So
You know, they're like, what? I have to go? Oh.
So what threat did you actually give, Rob?
yeah. Anyway, Chaille is Senior Vice President for Heritage Texas Properties, and their main office is located right there off the West Loop. And so I'd love to get a little background information. You're chairman now, but you've got a long history of real estate experience. And not that you're old, but you started like you're like 12.
Yes.
Not quite 12.
Help me here.
Put the shovel down,
13.
Rob. Step away from the hole.
So tell me, how'd you begin your career?
I actually started my career out in the commercial end of the business. Worked for a developer here in Houston, managing office buildings and marketing to potential tenants in the buildings.
And who was that developer?
The Russo companies.
I remember Joe Russo, absolutely. I remember that. So, and how'd you migrate over into the residential side?
Migrated over in the 80s. We purchased the rights to market and manage all of the Couch Mortgage portfolio with two partners I had, and then from that moved more into specifically to the residential end of the business.
Well, that must have been an interesting time because both those companies made the news quite often.
Absolutely.
And not
we-
necessarily the most positive light. So,
Well, but it was a good training ground. It was a wonderful opportunity for me, and we actually had about 3,000 homes that we marketed and managed throughout the Houston
my.
area during that time that we took over Couch Mortgage.
And when you look at that time also, you look at Houston today, where we're sitting at, right over 5 million, and you're looking at that time, that's a huge portfolio for the amount of homes that we had back in the 80s.
Absolutely, and we had to inspect them once a month.
Oh, wow.
well, that's pretty much true nowadays. I mean, these people that do REO business or real estate owned, which is
Right.
foreclosures, they have to do monthly inspections on these properties. There's
That is
a
correct.
lot of accountability in those pieces. So,
We had to photograph them, too, as well, and there was no digital photography then.
That was fun.
so Eckerd Drugs, who is now out of business, probably loved you. Everyone took their photos to Eckerd's to get processed. So, I remember those days. I still have photos left from those days. I don't know what to do with them. Scan them and put them online somewhere. So you ended up doing that piece. And so how did you end up being Senior Vice President at Heritage?
Well, I actually moved into different levels with Heritage. When I left real estate for a couple of years to work for Dale Carnegie full-time, sold and taught training.
Very nice.
And when I got back into the business, I decided I wanted to to see a different side of it. And so I actually worked for Robin Mick, who was chairman of the board, the year I went back to work for her.
And she was House Hunters at that time.
She was
right?
House Hunters at that time, and then in 1999, House Hunters merged with Czar and Company and formed Heritage Texas Properties.
Outstanding. And so our theme this week is going to be what you don't know can hurt you. Now, I know, and because we've had conversations and we've had the issues between the two companies or co-op and things like that, there's a lot of stuff that can go awry out there. And so when you're talking with your consumers or you're talking with your agents, what are the kind of the things that you see are happening out there that may have been avoided if somebody had some time to ask some questions or kind of look at things that you know will happen, but they don't get handled properly?
Well, I honestly believe that communication is so critical in today's world. It really is important that you communicate back and forth with the information that you have. Too many times I think agents think something will go away if they don't talk about it.
It doesn't go away? If you
It
don't
does
talk
not
about
go away.
Really? It's still there,
and that will
huh?
hurt you.
Yes, exactly, exactly. You know, and that's something I think is very good. You know, one of the best qualities I have seen with agents that are extremely successful is the way they disseminate both positive and negative information. Because positive things are going to happen, but also you can have some challenges associated with a real estate transaction. And those challenges are actually a better indicator of how that agent is and how it's responded to during that process.
Well, and I think there's so many moving parts to a transaction that it's so important that you have that communication. I believe that your stronger agents really are people who don't think that isn't my job.
Right.
And they take on the whole process from beginning to end and even throughout the transaction past the closing. I mean, I think it's so important that they realize this could be a client for life and potential future business elsewhere.
You know, and what are you seeing? You know, what are you seeing as some of the challenges? You know, obviously we talk about what you don't know can hurt you. What are some of the challenges that you've seen and that you're seeing going into 2014 that individuals need to be looking out for if you're working with an agent or you're working to buy a home?
One of the things that I think we have seen so much more of in 2013 and we'll see more of in 2014 is the delayed closing. I think it's going to be a larger problem, and people need to be aware of what could potentially delay the closing and be prepared for it.
That is correct. You know, and speaking of that, you have the new qualified mortgage, a topic that obviously we talk a lot about here, that's coming out on January the 10th. And so for a lot of people, it's about educating them on what those new changes are that, again, could lead to a delayed closing, you know, in regards to ability to repay, the 3% rule, the debt-to-income ratio, a lot of changes, and it has nothing to do with the fact that they're not going to get into the home. But one of the things I do agree with, it's setting expectations properly and also knowing that sometimes dates, I was talking with an agent yesterday and saying, dates are not necessarily, they're not set in stone, they're targets.
Absolutely.
And so, you know, you have to also have that flexibility and advise your client appropriately, if you ask me.
Well, and I think, too, when you get close, well, before you get too close to a date that's a target date as opposed to an actual date possibly, I think it's important to address that as early on as possible. So communication with the lender, communication with the title company, whoever you need to involve in the process to make sure that you are able to reach that target date, or you need to talk about moving it.
I would absolutely agree.
Here we are with 2.9 months supply of homes. So you've got an agent comes to you and says, I can't find any homes. I mean, what are they advising their clients to do when they're making offers on and knowing that they're going to be in a multiple offer situation?
Well, actually, I think that's the number one reason it's so important that you have great relationships with other agents in the marketplace, because it's important that you're able to call them, talk to them about what they may have coming on in the future, as well as having that credibility when you are negotiating. If you're one of the agents negotiating with a listing agent, I think it's important that they know that you're real, that you're trustworthy, and you're there to get the job done.
And that's a point about what you don't know can hurt you. I think creating those friendships and creating those opportunities of communication with other agents, I've seen it be a night and day difference in a transaction.
And you just had it happen.
I just
recently had it happen.
That is correct. I just recently had it happen in one. And by luck, I happened to have financed the individual who was in charge of the REO. And when she found out who I was, it made the transaction go extremely smooth. Prior to that, though, it was not a smooth transaction.
They were trying to break it out before they realized you were
trying
involved.
to be busted out. So that's a perfect example of the way a relationship can truly make a transaction happen versus the alternative, which is the deal was not going to happen, the home was going to be listed back on the market, and the agents were not getting along.
Well, and I think it's important, too, that everybody realize that it's a team effort. Because
Yes.
many times you possibly have a lender saying, well, I don't have to talk to you. You're not my client. Or you have the other agent saying, I don't have to talk to you. I represent the seller. And I think it's important that everybody realize that it's going to take the team to get the job done.
And I like what you said right there, because you are right. You know, one of the things that has to happen is you have to deal with individuals that have a good team. And part of being a team is understanding that we're all buyer's agent, seller's agent, lender, client A, client B, are all in it together. There's a mutual interest to buy and sell a piece of property. And so communication between all parties is absolutely key, especially with changes coming down, to make it happen, because it can be extremely smooth, or it can, as you mentioned right there, have a lot of challenges along the way if that communication is not there.
Right, and I think the communication doesn't need to happen just when something's getting ready to maybe go wrong. It needs to happen consistently and throughout the transactions to keep everybody involved, keep everybody up to date about what the processes are and what's happening.
I would thoroughly agree right there, because too often that's what we see is that people only deliver the negative news. But let me tell you, it's a lot more fun if you deliver the positive news along the way. It makes any negative things that can happen a lot easier to overcome, actually.
Well, and I think, too, if there's no news, sometimes it's okay just to pick up the phone and say, I don't have any news right now, but I am on it.
That's a great.
And it's
I like that
because
point.
many times people think if there's no news, I mean, if you're not talking to them, you're not there.
Right.
So I think it's important that you stay there in the conversation, in the process.
And that's true. I would agree with you. I think what you talked about is absolutely perfect, is make sure that you're at least communicating. There's no news. Everything's status quo, whatever it might be. Inspections came back great. Lender is still working on the file. That communication, even if it's just to say hello. You know, one of the things that I practice all the time, even if I do not have any update, I will call a client and say, how you doing? You got anything planned for the weekend? That way they know I'm still interested. I'm still working on them. If I'm willing to talk to them, you know that I've still got them in I think, you know, in their mind. And that's the same thing, I think, if all of us do the same thing in the entire transaction, it makes it so much easier.
Well, and I think if you're not talking to them, somebody else may be talking
That's
to them. So if you're the lender and you're not talking to them, then another lender might be telling them that they would be talking to them.
Right.
If you're the agent and you're not talking to them, then somebody else said, well, if you were my client, this is what I would have done.
That is correct. That's a very good point, by the way. I think, you know, one of the things I always practice and preach the following, I tell everybody, is professionalism in our industry is extremely important. You know, HAR actually is the best organization in the country associated with an association for that. And because of that, I think because of all the training that you do and because of all the services that you provide, we really have a higher quality of agent, if you ask me, overall than some of the other areas that I've dealt with.
You know,
and I will say, you know, I congratulate HAR for that.
You know, on that note, as the new chair, and I know you've been in the business for a while, as Rob has already indicated. I won't give you any hard time on that one, Rob. You see,
I'm old.
Seasoned.
I would never say that. You see the full gamut. And I know you would never disparage anybody by any means, but, you know, hey, we've got 20,000+ realtors running around out there. Not everybody's on the same caliber. From your expertise in that, and especially as the being involved with HAR, for the consumer, the listener, I'm picking a realtor. So often that's, you know, Aunt Sally that just got her license, or, you know, whoever. Give the listener some quick tips on how they can know they're working with a professional.
Aunt Sally, please don't call us.
Well, I think it's important that you develop a list of questions to ask your potential agent who's going to represent you, whether it's in a buy or a sell process. And I think it's important that you hold them to that level of expertise throughout the process.
HR has a pretty good review system, don't they?
They do. We actually have the only association that has a rating system, and you know what? Consumers want to be able to rate their realtor, and they want to. Not only that, they want to see the ratings before they do business with them.
Well, and one of the things that HAR is putting into place for 2014 is a list that consumers can use to try to determine what information they do need in a transaction.
You know, time flies when you're having fun, and this segment is actually coming up. You know, you are not going anywhere. You're going to be back here in our very last segment, but for all those listening, it is time for us to take a break, so stay tuned, and we'll be right back.